Hello and welcome back to another Helldivers 2 video, where the focus will be the RTX 3080Ti, which is practically identical to a 4070 Super, so that should be representative for you guys who are curious about the GPU as well. We're going to take a look at 1440p and 4K in multiple different worlds, and we'll also check out native and some of the render scale options that give you more performance. Let's not waste any time and dive into the numbers. If you do find the video helpful and interesting in any way, please leave a like if you like it. It would help me greatly. Let's begin with 1440p first, and we'll go through the settings real quick here. Game is running at 1440p native with all the graphical settings maxed out, and there really isn't a whole lot to say here because this GPU crushes 1440p. This recording I did is about 13 minutes long, where I completed the mission, and if we move towards the end of the mission and look at our averages and 1% lows, as I wait to be extracted, we can see that we have 93 FPS for averages and 82 FPS for 1% lows, which is great actually. I've made videos looking at the 6800 XT, 7900 XTX, and 4090. And on all my GPUs, this game's performance is excellent. So if you look at the averages and 1% low, the differences between the two, it's very close, which is something you don't see in a lot of games. That is very good. Since I've already recorded some 6800 XT footage, why don't we do a quick side-by-side comparison in a similar scenario, basically towards the end of the mission, and compare the performance between the two, because there is something that is worthy of discussion. Now, I've done a lot of benchmarks between these two GPUs, and I've compared them in many games. The 3080 Ti is usually a bit faster than my 6800 XT, but not by much. A lot of times, actually, they're pretty close. However, in this game, there seems to be a big difference, and this is something I've also noticed with the current generation on NVIDIA GPUs and AMD GPUs, is that in this game, it seems to be better optimized for NVIDIA, as in it gets more FPS. That gap between the two brands is actually quite a bit wider in this game. How wide? Well, if we were to measure the numbers between both cards at the end of the mission, the 3080 Ti is 37% faster on the averages and 36% faster on the 1% lows. And like I mentioned previously, having benchmarked both of these cards in multiple games, this gap is not normal. So there could be further optimizations coming for AMD GPUs. However, where it matters most, frame times and 1% lows, it's great on both brands. So that is that. I think we should move to 4K, where there's a lot more to see with the 3080 Ti. At 4K then, we're going to spend a little bit more time, just because we know at 1440p this GPU can crush it, no problem. But at 4K, it's kind of where we get close to dropping below 60 FPS. We're going to begin with this icy planet here that is somewhat representative in performance to most of the worlds that I've played, but there is some worlds that are more demanding. But before that, let's take a look at the settings. We're going to begin with 4K native, with all the graphical settings maxed out. And this here is group gameplay. It's kind of a bit of chaos going on here, but we seem to be getting around 60 FPS. That's not a problem at all. Actually, I would totally play this game like this, even though it is a shooter. The performance, if you look at the frame time graph and the 1% lows, they're actually pretty good. And it would be easy to gain some more performance if you were to adjust the settings. But just 4K native, I mean, this is quite impressive that we're getting very close to 60 FPS. Out of curiosity, let's compare my 7900 XTX footage I recorded at 4K native as well. Now, this isn't necessarily apples to apples comparison, but it's rather close. And as you can see here, the 7900 XTX is a bit faster, but not by much. I mean, this type of comparison is almost like I'm comparing ray tracing. It's how this performs. So I do really hope that at the very least AMD get in touch with the developers, because I don't think anyone really expected Helldivers 2 to be as big of a hit as it's become. I mean, the game is massive, guys. But basically, if we were to compare after around 10 minutes of gameplay, the 7900 XTX is 7% faster on the averages and 10% on the 1% lows. Again, it's not like an apples to apples comparison necessarily. The 3080 Ti I'm actually playing with 4 people. I don't think that really impacts the performance much. And on the XTX I'm playing by myself, but it's very comparable is all I'm trying to say. So again, we have excellent 1% lows on both sides. But however, I know people like to have at least 60 FPS when they're playing shooters in general, especially ones that are have an online component to them as well. And I think there's more performance to be gained here as well. So what we're going to try, actually, we're going to try the ultra quality render scale that's built into the game and see how much performance we can gain back. Now, right before we drop to the ultra quality preset from native, we have 59 FPS averages and 51% lows. And here we're going to drop to the ultra quality preset, and our FPS already went up to the 70s, and I just reset my averages and 1% lows counter, and we seem to be doing okay. Actually, we gained quite a bit of performance here. We'll go ahead and skip about 5 minutes forward to see what our 1% lows and averages are, and they're still very comparable. We have 76 for average, 67 for 1% lows, and on native we had 60 on averages and 50 on the 1% lows. So just by dropping to the ultra quality render scale, we're able to gain a lot more performance and be well above 60 comfortably. And if you look at the image quality, it looks more or less the same to me. I mean, maybe there's a bit more aliasing if you pay close attention, but are you? You're going to be paying attention to the bugs. This game is nuts, but yeah, this is a very good way to gain some extra performance if you need it. Before we jump onto the next planet, where it's actually quite a bit more demanding than this one, here's a side-by-side of 3080 Ti at 4K native and ultra quality render scale. And as you can see, the difference is very, very noticeable in FPS. Can you notice a difference in image quality though? I personally can't really, not without closely examining it. It looks very similar. And I am unfortunately at the end of the footage for this gameplay here because we ended up losing network connection. There's been some network issues this morning, but I just wanted to show you guys that you can claw back performance by just toggling the render scale to ultra quality or even balance if you had to, right? But anyway, let's move on to the next planet where it's quite a bit more demanding, and we'll start with 4K native. There you go, connection error. In this mission, it was my first time fighting the robots. It's like Terminators and AT&Ts from Star Wars. It's kind of funny actually, but it was a lot of fun, and it was actually very difficult. And this planet was the most demanding that I've encountered so far. And once you take a look at the gameplay footage, you will kind of see why. There's a lot going on. As tough as it was though, we were always in good hands because Mr. Cool Sex Haver is with us. He's probably 12 years old. That's probably the type of name I probably would have made in my teenage years. But let's take a look at the settings. We're going to begin with 4K native here with all the settings maxed out, as we usually do. And let's take a look at the performance. Here we're in the mid 50s with 1% lows in the mid to low 40s. As a matter of fact, I played with these settings for about 8 minutes or so. Let's skip forward a bit, see if they drop any more. There's a big battle going on here, and yeah, it seems to be in the mid 50s for the averages and in the mid 40s for the 1% lows. So that's not great. And now that I think of it, actually, it is more demanding than the ice planet, but it's not really all that by that much. I mean, we were kind of close to 60 on the ice planet, and by the end of my run, we were at 50 FPS for 1% lows, and here we're in the mid 40s. So yeah, it's a bit noticeable. It's a bit worse, but it's not that bad. One thing I've noticed, actually, even if you play by yourself or with a huge group of people, and in this planet where there's so much atmospheric effects and so many explosions, so much more action, the difference in performance actually is not as much as you would probably think. I played with these settings for about 25 minutes. If you look at the mission in the beginning, we had 40 minutes left, and now we're at 19. And this is a very good representation. We're at 54 FPS on the averages and 44 on the 1% lows. So again, it's very similar to how it was in the beginning. They sort of evened out to that. So yeah, it's a bit more demanding by about 5 FPS. It's not really all that bad, actually. If we were to compare averages and 1% lows between the two planets, we are off by about, actually exactly 4 FPS, 4 or 5 FPS. So that's not a huge difference, I would say. And this planet that we're on now is, like I said, the most demanding of them all. There's very thick forests and a lot of stuff going on. So I would say this is worst case scenario, at least that I've encountered so far. For the second half of the mission though, I decided to put render scale to quality. So we took a look at ultra quality on the previous planet. Let's take a look at quality on this one and see what type of performance gains we get. Let's go ahead and set that render scale to quality now. And if it works the same as FSR, this should be 1440p essentially. I don't know what ultra quality is, but it's probably between 1440 and 4K. As you can see, we're now getting 70 FPS. And I just reset my averages of 1% lows. And I essentially played the rest of this mission, which was for another 10 minutes until we extracted collecting averages of 1% lows up until that point, which we're going to take a look at. But as you can see, even in this crazy demanding planet, you can play at 4K with render scale to quality or run it natively, which, you know, it'll put you down into the 50s with the low 40s as far as 1% low. So that is not great. It's not bad necessarily because, again, the frame times and 1% lows in this game are very well optimized actually. And I don't know about the crashing issues if they've improved, but I've heard that they've improved a little, and I'm assuming that with time that's going to get a lot better. But I mean, setting it to quality, to me, the image quality, pun intended, it actually looks pretty good. It's not, I can't really necessarily tell the difference. Again, in this game, you're so busy running around, but nothing really stands out as like it being like aliased or anything from the render scale. But I would really love to know what they're using. It has to be FSR that they're using. I hope it's not FSR 1. I hope it's FSR 2, but I don't know. Again, we're getting some healthy performance. What we're going to do is we're going to skip close to right before we extract, and then we can take a look and see what the averages and 1% lows are towards the end of the mission after collecting all this data. So after 10 more minutes of gameplay, we're at 80 FPS for average and 67 1% low. So we actually went up 5 FPS on the averages, which is probably because the fighting probably got a bit less intense and there was less trees around. That would affect the averages, but the 1% lows are the same as they were 10 minutes ago. So it's something I've noticed in this game, that the 1% lows stay consistent throughout, which is really, really nice to see. So yeah, guys, you can turn on render scale and gain performance if you need it. I would say that's probably the best way. I haven't really messed around with the graphical settings too much, just because the GPUs I have, you can just use the render scale and maintain that high fidelity and then gain performance that way, because it actually looks pretty good even using the render scale. So you could do that if you had to. But yeah, I wanted to do a little bit more in-depth, I guess, review, you can call it. I don't know if you guys are regular viewers of mine. Let me know what you think about this, or if you prefer the shorter, more rapid style of benchmark that I do in the games. But either way, I do appreciate you watching, and I really value your input and recommendations, criticisms, whatever it is. Leave them below. I would love to hear about it. But that'll be it for this video, guys. Please like and subscribe if you so choose to, but a like goes a long way as far as YouTube promoting the video and more people getting to see it. But anyway, this was fun. I enjoyed making the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as well. I will see you in the next one, and I hope you all have a great day. I know Mr. Cool Sex Haver is going to have a great day for sure. All right, guys. I will see you in the next one.